The following tutorial is brought to you by wholeloops.com.
It's production time. I'm Reid Stefan, realist puppet in the game. Today, I got 10 tips to take your delay game to the next level. The example that I'm going to be using is my track Runnin' and Duckin' featuring Baker, and it's a dry a cappella over a trap beat. Let's take a quick listen to what we're working with today.
wholeloops.com.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wildin'. Hell no, put my phone on silent.
So as you could see, this vocal has lots of space in it that can be filled with delays, and that's exactly what we're going to do. My favorite new delay tool here inside Ableton is Echo. If you don't have Ableton 10, you're not going to have Echo, but I'm sure most of you guys have Ableton 10 by now. So we're going to create a return track and another return track. And we're going to drag one instance of Echo onto each one. Actually, let's just start with this one. Give ourselves some nice eighth notes, full on the wet and dry. And now some of you may be wondering, what's the difference between, just putting it on the vocal and doing the wet and dry like this? Well, when you have it at 50%, for example, you're only hearing your dry signal at half volume and your delayed signal at half volume, versus putting it on a return channel, your dry signal stays at full volume, your wet signal stays at full volume, and then you just mix it with these volume controls right here. And I like to put them, I call it like 10 below the dry signal for starters. And now that we have this all set up, let's take the feedback down, because in this we don't have very big gaps to fill, but down here in the ad-libs we got some big gaps to fill. So we're going to make a copy of this and paste it down onto here, and let's call this delay lead and delay ad-lib. Now that we got our two auxes set up, let's send everything to the corresponding delay. So this is the lead and this is the lead, and these are going to be the only two getting sent to this bus. And these and these, and let's do the stack too. We're all going to get sent to the longer delay bus. And this is going to be a longer delay bus just by having a higher feedback than this one does. Because like I said, small gaps, big gaps. Let's take a listen and see what we've done so far.
wholeloops.com.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wildin'. Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoe.
We can even bump up the feedback a little bit more on our ad-lib delays. Let them really ring out for a long time.
Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoe, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locking. Running and ducking these hoes.
So you could see our ad-libs hanging out for a little longer. And this just has like one or two echoes, and that's all we really need to fill these little gaps in the lyrics. Let's take it to tip number 2. You're going to want 2 different types of delays going, and that's super simple. Let's just make our ad-libs a ping pong, and then we could take our leads and switch them into mid-side mode. That way none of our delays are taking place in the mono-centered area of our song. Everything's kind of getting pushed to the outsides so that our lead vocal can hold it down for the middle. Number 4, we're going to want to do a little bit of bit reduction going into the delay plugin, so our delays are kind of gritty sounding, but not really harsh, which is why I like to put the reduction before the delay. We can turn this on, maybe just bump it down like 1, turn this on and like bump it up like 2, and then we'll copy this guy and paste it before our other one.
wholeloops.com.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wildin'. Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoe, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locking.
The downsampling really makes it sound like a walkie-talkie really quick, so even just at 1, that subtleness is all we need, and maybe a little bit less subtle on the ad-libs. Let's let the ad-lib delays get real grimy as they go.
Hell no, put my phone on silent.
And the next thing that we're going to want to do is add just a little bit of saturation after it. Ableton Saturator is perfect for this. It gets a little bit loud, so we're going to bump down the volume before we even turn it up.
Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoes, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locking.
And let's do some saturation out here too.
Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoes, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locking.
Do your 808s sound like they belong in a recycling bin? Are your trap productions lacking that fresh organic hot sauce? Here at Whole Loops, we've got the product for you. Introducing Urban Beats 3, the latest addition to our best-selling bundle of trap snares, pop-in percussions, and the most disrespectful 808s we've ever harvested. Urban Beats 3 is available now only at wholeloops.com.
All right, now we're up to tip number 5 for mixing your delays. And this one is super crucial for keeping the delays off of your vocal. Man, this Echo plugin has this ducking option, and this is the equivalent of putting a sidechain compressor on it and telling it to sidechain to your vocal, like the Baker lead, for example. But instead of having to set this up and route it, it's already set up and routed for you. You just have to pick how many decibels you'd like it to attenuate while the vocal is going, and also release. So maybe like 20. Let's take a listen and see what our lead sounds like now.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wildin'. Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoes, always going shopping.
As you could hear, the delays are really only taking place in the gaps now, and they're super quiet during the actual words. And that is crucial for helping your listeners understand the lyrics. Now, on our ad-lib delays, we don't really need to do this because the words are so short that by the time the delay comes a quarter note later, the word is already over. So if it was singing, I would probably do that to the background vocals, but since we're dealing with a trap vocal, really no need to do that to the backgrounds. Number 6. Now this really depends on the style of production you're working with and whether or not reverb is going to be appropriate, but if you apply reverb to your delays, it works like a panning knob, but instead of panning left to right, think of it as panning forwards to backwards, like front to back. Do you want to send your delays to the back? Then just add a little reverb.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wildin'. Hell no, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoes, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locked.
And you can adjust the decay of the reverb right here, and you don't even feel like the vocal is really reverbed, but the delays have this lush sense of space that gives the acapella that width that it was missing. So reverbs are definitely going to be an awesome addition to your delays, and you can definitely crank up the reverbs on your ad-libs because you got a lot of space to fill.
No, put my phone on silent. Stingy hoes, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locking.
Sounding really, really good. Now the next thing that we're going to want to do is a little bit of automation. You may not want every single lyric to get sent to the delay plugin. So the way you can carve out the lyrics that you don't want to hear delayed, like for example, I tend to like the words that rhyme be the ones that get delayed, and then all the words leading up to it be cut out. So you just hit the letter A.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wildin'. Hell no, put my phone on silent.
Now this seems like it would be similar to the sidechain thing that we just did, but this leaves you with a much cleaner input signal. You don't hear little artifacts of this stuff while you're hearing this word delay out. It's really a super clean way to just send the words that you want to the delays. And you can copy and paste this because rap top lines tend to be rhythmically repetitive, And you could usually get away with just a little Command D action like that in the automation lane.
Main chick, side chick, both of them be wild. Hell no.
Let's take this one out too. I think that one's interfering with the next lyric, and I don't really like that. And this is something that the sidechain kind of effect that we did in the last tip, number 5, isn't really going to help you with, which is why you want to do both.
Hell no. Put my phone on silent. Stingy hoes, always going shopping. Tesla, I be locking.
Same thing with this. Didn't really clean it out enough, so let's just clean that thing.
Tesla, I be locking.
Maybe we'll even take the first syllable down too.
Tesla, I be locking. Running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking these.
See, this really is going to help us make a lot of cleanliness in our lyrics.
Running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking and ducking.
It's getting rid of the word running, it's that way. It's just the important word gets echoed.
Running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking these hoes.
This is definitely going to be the most time-consuming part of your delay creating process, but trust me, it is so well worth it. Spend the time, carve out every single word that you don't think really absolutely needs to be delayed, because mixing is all about removing. Number 8, and this is a huge one, especially if you're mixing trap vocals or anything that is not sung. This effect inside of the character of your echo, called wobble, is essentially pitch modulation. So it's going to sound a little sharp and flat and constantly be bending back and forth between sharp and flat. The amount you dial in and the amount of morph you dial in, we'll get it real extreme just so you could hear exactly what it's doing, and then we'll tone it down so we can find a...
Running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking these hoes.
So you can see it's kind of jacking up the pitch because we did it at full blast, but if you do it just a little bit...
Running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking these hoes.
You don't even realize that it's happening. If this was singing, it would become abundantly clear right away that you were adding some wobble to it. So for singing, I don't even push it too far past like 10 on these amounts, but since we're dealing with a rap vocal, not really something with a pitch to it, it's more speech, you can really get away with some high modulation.
Running and ducking these hoes, running and ducking these hoes.
These are sounding really good. Now we can do some additional removing from our delays by just removing the extra bass and treble that we don't want to hear. All that bass and treble should really be designated for the dry vocal. Give this a little resonance to help it sound extra mid-rangey. And do the same thing to our other echoes up here. Where is it? Whoops. Right in here. Boom. You can toss that up, grab it, and toss that one up.
Puppet on a private island.
I'm always going to be adjusting this output gain as I go, because as you edit things, the volume kind of becomes a little different, and this just helps you keep it under control.
Realist puppet on a private island. Coconuts and pineapples. Sample packs. Hold ups where you find them.
All right, and tip number 10 is automate your feedback to help fill any gaps that aren't filled yet. Like, even though this is a lead, there's not an ad-lib here to fill this gap, so we're just going to go down here and automate our feedback knob. Hit the letter A, give it a little jiggle. Okay, so it's down here.
Puppet on a private island.
And let's just fill this whole gap.
On a private island. Coconuts and pineapples.
Maybe turn it down a little bit.
On a private island. Coconuts and pineapples. Sample packs. Hold ups where you find them. Produce I be buying. Puppets and hoes. They always touching my clothes. Running and ducking them though. All the way home from the stove.
And since these have an ad-lib to fill the gap, you don't really need to bump the feedback up, but you could see we're really just molding our effects specifically to our vocal. And that's what mixing is all about. So there you have it, my 10 tips to take your delays from basic town to some professional sounding productions. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see some of my other videos about mixing vocals, mixing trap beats, or an entire trap vocal production from start to finish, I'll put the link to the video in the description so you can check that out. And I'll see you in the comments below and catch you next time with another tutorial. Peace out.